a significant amount of money is pouring in. At some point in time, Fluidity of Insurance will become a reality where every aspect of your life will be covered. Every event will be covered based on the data that you've generated in the past 6 months, 12 months, 18 months of your lifestyle. And it will happen. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. This is Raghav Jaggi from EXL. And this is the future of insurance.
This April 26th and 27th in Chicago, join me and leaders from companies like Liberty Mutual, Nationwide, Allstate, American Family, Northwestern Mutual, and more for the AI and Innovative Tech event from Reuters. Hear from top leaders in the industry on how we can ensure all the new tech and tools we're investing in and deploying can have the impact we need to push our organizations and the industry forward. Register today by visiting future-of-insurance.com/AIUSA. Raghav, thank you for joining me for a conversation today.
Thank you, Brian, and I'm glad to be on today.
So I want to get some perspective from across the industry from you. So often, I sit down with amazing people, but from one perspective or one company's view. And while you're from EXL, you have a company view, but you also see across so many different things going on in the industry. So I'm curious to hear, especially in light of COVID, what's been changing, what's coming for us and all that. But before we do that, just tell us a little bit about you and what you do at EXL.
So Brian, I've been with EXL now for about 19 years, and our P&C business is actually one of the largest providers for the space. We service over 100 carriers across the entire value chain, and really it's been an amazing journey. And to your question, we do get to see a number of carriers, small, mid-sized, global large companies. And a lot has changed since COVID. A number of things have truly gotten accelerated.
Yeah.
A number of these organizations were on the path to embed more digital, more technology. But truly, I think in terms of the global landscape and the impact of the pandemic has accelerated these programs, I would say at least by 3 years. And the investments that would have typically taken a while in operations, in back office, all of that, the money is just pouring in to get onto the path to deliver better customer experience more and more and more.
Yeah. So there's definitely a lot of talk about that acceleration and 3 years, 5 years, 1 year, whatever people's measurement of. I totally agree with you. It's definitely moved forward. Have there been costs? So are there things that got taken off track that should be on track, or some downsides to it as well? Like, are there things that we've not been doing that we were doing before that we need to get back to doing?
So Brian, I think the overall kind of innovation as such in our industry, right? And we've seen that a number of examples, right? I mean, Uber coming in and disrupting the whole kind of market, Amazon, Airbnb. For us as this legacy kind of industry, innovation hasn't kind of been at the pace, or money hasn't poured into innovation. We've been kind of held back because of the legacy plumbing and the electric work.
Yeah.
For the larger global carriers to have spent more money, more time, more effort, would have really been good, and they were kind of getting on that path, and they were these incumbent massive carriers with new kind of in-house startups. Some of that money kind of fueling that. I think if money goes into that, they're best suited, given their experience, their handling of the regulation, rather than people with hoodies and backpacks in Silicon Valley thinking that this is an industry we'll come in and disrupt. Yeah. And we actually mapped about 250 insurtech companies, and we mapped them across the value chain of insurance and across the product lines of insurance. And 60 to 70% of the disruption that was taking place was all on the personal line side, distribution side. Okay. Really, I think the money and the prize, if we can solve for the large global markets, right? And kind of convert that from an art to a science, more towards a science
Yeah.
rather than a bespoke art, the more value we'll see for our end customers.
So what do you mean by that? What does an art look like versus a science here?
So science is more use of tech, more use of straight through digital processing, more use of taking that people person dependency out of adjusting a claim or underwriting a policy to dependence on AI and sophisticated machine learning algorithms. That's what we as an organization do day in and day out. And really, I think, Bryan, it's not just about the large and the big data and the IoT of things.
Mm-hmm.
There is so much value in what these carriers are sitting on in terms of their own data. I'm going to call it small data. But the way, sorry.
No, everyone talks about big data. So now I'm moving in my seat because I'm like, well, what is small data?
This is fairly provocative, but it's common sense.
Yeah.
Think about an organization, Bryan, that is hyper connected with customer experience at its very, very core, de-siloed, completely one organization. The silos or the walls that we have between underwriting, claims, FinOps, kind of broken down. The walls that we have between product lines, kind of broken down. Leveraging real-time data and creating insights, both predictive as well as prescriptive, based on the experience that you're having right now, rather than waiting 6 months, 12 months for rate changes.
Yeah.
There is immense value to be tapped into.
Well, give me an example. What's the kind of thing that plays out in this sort of more connected, less siloed, small data focus?
I'll give you a simple example for a work comp kind of claim payment. Right?
Yeah.
Let's just assume Ohio manufacturing plant, we as the provider processing payments, claim payments, leveraging global talent pool. The value isn't about the labor arbitrage, about leveraging global talent pool or the right job for the right price at the right location. The value is, can there be an AI or a machine learning algorithm that actually taps into that claim payment? And if it's hand injury for a Midwestern manufacturing plant here in the US, and if there are 2 hand injury claim payments that go in within a 24, 36, 48-hour window for that plant, a direct data loop comes in, informs loss control. They pick up the phone, talk to the safety manager of that particular plant, and you really kind of help update safety procedures for that plant, thereby impacting indemnity spend. The idea really, as future of insurance, as things change, it's going to become less and less about protection and more about prevention, avoidance across every single product line.
Yeah. What I'm thinking about, having had some work done on my house, not by choice. I got an estimate, and then by the time that the crew was available to do it, which was many months later, the work was the same. The costs were materially different. And actually the labor price was the same, which surprised me, but the inputs, all the building materials, dramatically more expensive. And of course they couldn't even get some of them. So I still have a broken front step. So hopefully no one tries to deliver anything, which of course, like in the pandemic, everything's delivery. So
everything,
that's been a problem.
Lumber costs to home appliances to anything,
everything.
Right? This was the trend, right? With cars. It took 6, 8, 9, 12 months, depending on the carrier, that aluminum was costing more to repair because of the use.
Right.
And things are changing. So the value of real-time small data is significantly underestimated. And the value of really breaking the barriers or the silos between claims, underwriting, and finance is something that we're actually supporting a number of our carriers. We're becoming the catalyst, the change agent around that.
So you're saying they could take like the building material costs changing in real time into underwriting's knowledge of they're basing what the rate factors are and all that, and I mean, it depends on the line if you can get your rating changed, but is that sort of what you're seeing? Is it's claims data, and it's not even that the claims people don't talk to the underwriting people. It's more, can the data just do it for them? And then
Absolutely.
there's the feedback loop is built in.
Absolutely. There are about 30 of these loops that we are developing, 6 for this year. And it's not just that, it's simple. If you're collecting FinOps,
Yeah.
right? You're actually collecting on premiums, and you're seeing, and I'm going to just come up with this hypothetical example of landscapers in Long Island. And you're seeing that there's a trend. There is a trend where this particular category of SMEs in this particular industry is not paying on time. Are we really using that data and informing our pricing decisions? That's the fundamental question, rather than running after always and talking about the hype around the big data.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really small data point, but it affects your whole cost of capital. So small data, big marginal impact. It's an interesting way of reframing it. And so I spend a lot of time in specialty lines. And one of the things that's so critical there is underwriting and claims really works much more hand in hand, talking through, because the matters are more complex, and you have to figure out what are the liability issues. But real scale is this constant feedback loop on these little nuances throughout. It's much more of a kind of customer centric, customer life cycle view of what's going on, rather than the annual, oh, look what the past year did to us, now we need to rethink our rating for next year of account.
Absolutely, Brian. I think, and really, I think the way I framed it earlier, right? And I'll kind of repeat it again. Like, think about the future of insurance as a hyper-connected, de-siloed organization with customer experience at its core, enabled by real-time data, AI, tech, and digital, to create what I would introduce as fluidity of insurance. Right.
So, today, tell me about this. What does fluidity of insurance mean?
So today, let's just take you and I as an example, right? If we were to break down our insurance needs or the environment we operate in, we've got a health policy, we've got a life policy, we've got a car policy.
Yeah.
If you're renting in Manhattan, you have to have a renter's policy or a home insurance, right? If you look at the number of touch points, as a customer, what I would really want is the ability for everything embedded, right? So if I am Raghav Jaggi, I would want a carrier that covers me for my health, for my life, for my car, for my home, for my apartment, no matter what it is, for my pet, no matter what I touch is covered.
Yeah.
10 years down the line, the open finance initiatives that are continuing, the ability of us allowing our data to be used, and data is being used, right? I mean, at every point in time, no matter, I have Alexa at the background. She's probably listening into everything we're talking.
So you probably just triggered her. I'm surprised mine didn't just go off when you said that.
Right. So it's at any point in time, all of this data is being captured.
Yeah.
It's the fundamental problem is the use of this data in a seamless fashion with some of these larger global legacy players. And therefore, I feel that the traditional hubs of London and Hartford and others will see a ton of competition from Hong Kong, Singapore, India. I mean, all of this new innovation, they are not tied down by the legacy systems or mindsets or culture. What works for an advantage, culture can be, it's a double-edged sword, right? It can help you propel or it can actually hold you back. They're not kind of constrained by capital. Brian, there is so much alternate capital pouring in to our industry now that the models are significantly evolving.
Yeah.
I mean, the world is evolving, the risks are evolving, right? I mean, before COVID, right? Just think about it, right? Nobody could have ever imagined an event where the entire world comes to a lockdown.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know whatever side of climate change you are or you're not. Climate change is real. What used to be 1 in 25 years event is happening to be 1 in 2 year event.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've had 2 1 in 500 year storms in the same year, followed by another, similar scale the following year. Yeah. I mean, there's no question. I want to get more into this fluidity of insurance though, and what it takes to deliver that, because this is, you mentioned Airbnb and Uber, and the argument there is no one in the industries that they disrupted or they came into could have come up with that. Jeff Bezos was at Goldman Sachs. He was not in retail, certainly not book retail. I'm sure he read books. What does it take to create this kind of fluid, customer, everything they touch is just covered, it's all embedded, and it's happening on demand sort of world? Is that something that we can deliver from where we're at today, or does it take some outsider coming in and disrupting?
So Brian, I'm not going to be able to predict whether it's going to come from inside or outside, but the reality is that you have to reimagine everything that is done today by the constraints that you have today versus an outside-in view of the customer at the very core of everything that you would do, right? And there are bits of pieces of that, right? And we've all heard the golden kind of process of that whole lemonade Canada Goose jacket claim paid in nanoseconds because of the AI and algorithm running, 19 different models to make sure that it was all legit and done.
Yeah.
Right? But again, I think the disruption is happening in slivers of value chains rather than that Uber type, Airbnb type, Bezos type model. And I think these models will evolve, right? I think what is good is that a significant amount of money is pouring in.
Yeah.
At some point in time, fluidity of insurance will become a reality where every aspect of your life will be covered. Every event will be covered based on the data that you've generated in the past 6 months, 12 months, 18 months of your lifestyle to be captured, and it will happen. It's just a matter. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when.
Yeah.
When will someone think about and rethink that future?
Yeah.
The way we think about it, Brian, to enable our clients and customers is really kind of support them in creating this hyper-connected organization. We've been in the provider space now for 20 plus years. Insurance is over 50% of what we do. Data and analytics as a whole organization is over 40% of our revenues. And we have significantly pivoted from providing services to really providing solutions. And this whole kind of data loops concept that I talk about, this is like a platform. It's a plug and play platform where with APIs, we connect into the claims data, the underwriting data, the finance data, and create these real-time signals and alerts. And obviously, as time progresses, as AI becomes more sophisticated, as we do a better job with our implementation and APIs, this is just going to evolve more and more and more to help these carriers become more efficient. And efficiency is key. I mean, we've all benefited significantly with a hard rate market, and premiums have expanded because rates have continuously gone up. I mean, that cycle is not forever. It's not going to continue indefinitely. With a soft market, the efficiency play is significant. I was on a call with the CEO of a mid-sized carrier yesterday evening, and as they look at expanding internationally, insurance in a box with newer plumbing, newer kind of, the whole concept is we have to keep the expenses as low as possible. We have to look at decoupling the roles of the underwriters, the actuaries, and the claims adjusters so that it's actually the right intensity for the right severity or for the right dollars applied. Not like 80% of our actuarial staff here in the US spending time on data cleansing, data prepping. I mean, that has to just go away.
Yeah. So when you talk about this fluidity of insurance kind of future state, and I see how maybe the small data is a piece of the step in getting us there, because it has us thinking in smaller units and in more continuously. I hear you that you're not going to call who's going to create it, whether it's an incumbent or a startup, and that's fine. But I guess what I'm asking is, are incumbents capable of engaging in that? Is there an enabler? Because I know there are no systems that could do that today, at least not in P&C in the US.
Right.
But certainly not that cross. I mean, you're talking about not just P&C, but you're saying life and health and P&C and commercial and personal. It's all blended into covering you for how you're acting and what you're engaging with. There's nothing that conceives of that today. So how do you, if that's your starting point, it's hard not to feel constrained by that. So how do you overcome that?
You got to rethink and really incubate something brand new. Or I would not be surprised if the big tech comes in and really disrupts the market with something like this. This whole Facebook meta concept is interesting, right? I mean, we'll soon. My kids, I mean, they love Minecraft, Roblox, and they buy things on there, and I'm like, you're actually spending real dollars for a virtual suit, right? And for them, this is life. I mean, they're growing up with this, and yeah, I mean, if a big tech comes in and they've got our data, right? I mean, between Google and Facebook and they've got our data. They know how we live. They know what we eat. They know what we drive. For them to come in and enable this, it would not be surprising for me if the likes of the global giants, insurance giants, don't kind of tap into this concept. I mean, really, I mean, if you look at the embedded insurance market itself, you buy an iPhone, if you buy the new 13 Pro, they're going to push Apple Care. Any Apple product, they're going to push Apple Care with it. I believe, I don't know if it's Swiss Re or it was $700 billion embedded insurance P&C market for here by 2030. That's a massive, massive, massive market. And it's happening. It's happening with our devices. It's happening with events. It's happening with travel, and it's all happening, but it's not happening the way Airbnb came and really, really, really disrupted things, or Uber came and really disrupted things. So I think that, Bryan, I know it's provocative for someone like me that truly wants the insurance industry to evolve at a faster pace and to really leverage. It is a sleeping giant. And it is hard for all the reasons that you've spoken about, right? It's culture, it's mindset, it's regulatory pressures. It is complex. It's not one line, one product, right? I mean, the distribution channels aren't all the same. The risks aren't all the same, and the risks are constantly evolving. Look at infectious disease now with its impact on the global pandemic. Look at the number of ransomware attacks that are happening now with cyber. Things are changing at such a fast pace that it is difficult to reimagine and to redo it the way some of the other industries have happened. So rather than, I mean, I would love to kind of dwell on the future, but we got to also be pragmatic about there are a number of these constraints, and the industry we operate in is not a cookie cutter, standardized lift and shift or change kind of an industry.
But I take your point is it's to be aware of what the future could be, and ultimately, and I think you're right, this will happen at some point, even if it's 80 years out or 5 years out, who knows, and sort of who cares. Either way, there are things we need to be doing today that start us on that path, so that whenever it happens, it's not an impossibility for us, even, as others are able to do it, whether they're big tech or, current sleeping giants or something in between. These are the moments where we get to make some of the decisions that allow us to play down the road as the bigger ships come. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
Raghav, this is interesting. I mean, honestly, people have talked about different things around the sort of the customer centricity of the product. Usually there's a line though. It's, your life insurance will work this way and your auto insurance will work this way, or maybe it's your auto and your home, but it's still your personal lines exposures. But you're talking about something significantly broader, and maybe it's the vision that people are painting for maybe the 2030s is a step in that direction. But I think there's a lot of people who are like, oh, that's impossible, or here's why it can't work. what if the here's whys didn't exist, and now start to think more freely? And I think that's your point, is we have to imagine a totally different way of architecting the concept. And then what do we need to start putting in place today and thinking about differently? And our siloed approach is never going to get us there.
Absolutely, Brian. These are constraints that we put on our own selves, right? These are constraints in how we're organized in our very enterprises.
Yeah.
Oh, I am underwriting, I am claims, I am finance, I am actuarial, I am personal lines, I'm retail markets, your specialty,
right,
your life, your health. It is just how we categorize based on the conventional norms.
Yeah.
These conventional norms will never get us. The whole idea is to create that fluidity platform. I mean, Bezos started selling books. Yep. Think about it.
Yeah.
Right? And today I actually log on to my Amazon account at least 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Either to check on something or to check on something for my kids or to order something new. It's just convenient.
Yeah.
And it is being reimagined by keeping me as the client, not by, oh, that's product categorization, that you need us. So it's about rethinking it based on us as the end customer, rather than us as an organization, on how we like to divvy up things and create these walls to justify what we do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, that's a great analogy, because I think if people really stop and think how many pieces of their life as a person is Amazon touching, it's consumption, it's entertainment, it's streaming, it's data services, it's in your car. I mean, that's a really good analogy. Yeah. So use that to rethink how we could be touching a given consumer without the same barriers and structures that we place on what a consumer gets to be or not, because they don't care. You don't care that this is personalized and that's commercial. If you have an issue, you need help.
I'll tell you, about 80% of the population doesn't even understand these differences. For them, insurance is insurance, protection is protection, period.
Yeah.
They don't care if it's embedded, if I go to a separate, if it's the life policy, it's just annoyance.
Right.
For them, it's annoyance that even with the same brand name, when you buy a policy for your home or for your auto or for your pet, or for your small business,
right,
it is not consistent.
Right.
Period. It is just not consistent. So that is, for an end consumer, it is annoyance. And that's the experience that needs to change.
Yeah.
That's the engagement that needs to change.
I think that's a good war cry to end on. Raghav, thank you very much for the thoughts. It's great to sit down with you.
Thank you so much, Brian. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you.
Thank you to Raghav for joining me for that interview, that discussion. It's really interesting, this fluidity of insurance concept. And like I mentioned, it is something that I've definitely seen before, but I don't think to the extent that he's talking about. And I don't know why I didn't think about breaking down those barriers between life and health and P&C and maybe things we're not even thinking about yet. It's really interesting. Like, home warranty is not an insurance coverage, but why? Why isn't that more intertwined? I don't know, there's a lot to think about with that. Auto warranty, like I'm coming up with new things right now. It's very interesting. And I think that's the point, is what if you didn't constrain yourself with the ways that we frame things today and what is possible and what our systems allow or our regulations allow? What if those barriers weren't there? What would you come up with if you thought about what a person needs and how you can meet those needs? It is really fascinating. And I think he's right. It's a matter of when, not if. That is the way things are. It could be a very long time. None of us may be around for it, or it could be here much sooner than we think. I mean, we go back to the start of the conversation around what COVID enabled. Maybe there are other things coming that will be these super accelerants that bring about or force change at a much broader scale, a more structural scale. And then, we're enabling a totally new way of looking at it. It's very interesting. And of course, if you're the one who comes up with that, if you solve for it, then like the Amazon example, like Airbnb, like Uber, the market is yours. Really, really fascinating. A lot to think about. And I just think the perspective from across so many different carriers, so many different situations that Raghav brings, that EXL brings, it's really valuable. So I'm glad we got to sit down with him. So definitely check out more about EXL, exlservice.com. And of course, this episode is brought to you by my books, by the Future of Insurance series. So a thank you to me, I guess, to the 15 carriers who made themselves available and shared so openly in the stories in the 2 different books, 7 legacy carriers, the 8 startup insurers. It's really fascinating stuff. I got a lot out of it. Even as a person who wrote the stuff, I was learning a ton as I went. So I can only imagine, what you can take in for yourself in your context. And I hope it's valuable to you. A lot of people seem to find it to be valuable. So hopefully, if you haven't read it yet, pick up a copy or a copy of both books, or listen to copies of both books, because I've got them on Audible, and see how it can help you rethink what you're considering for your exact experience, your exact situation, or maybe the stuff that you're dreaming about on the back of Raghav's conversation that make you rethink what's possible. So with that, thank you everybody for joining me for another episode, and I will see you back here next time for another really valuable conversation with someone else who's helping to push us all forward into the future of insurance. Thanks, everyone.